Then,
Everybody,
looking back.
nobody's come to talk, have they?
Not
They
that I'm
have.
aware of when they do.
If they show up, we'll give them the floor.
Sure.
Okay, the meeting is now called to order. And the first item on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes from the meetings of November 13th, 2017, which is attached. Are there any changes?
I move to accept the minutes.
Okay.
Wait a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
The minutes are accepted. Approved is the right word. Okay, and resident and citizen participation seems to be rather sparse tonight.
Yeah.
So we'll skip over in case somebody comes later. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Okay, we have a warrant hearing on the 2018 annual plan for the VHP. And that's this one, isn't it?
No, that's not that.
Is that in this book?
It is in there.
Well, you
It
just
should
got them out of
be-
order.
Yeah. It is,
Oh, I've got it in here, yeah. It's a big, it's a fat
it's
one,
a,
isn't it?
yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but it's this streamlined annual plan, and then there's the financial, the capital, excuse me, the capital fund financial, and,
Just took a little bit out of the way.
It all
since I
hooked
looked at it
together?
today.
yes, well, it might be, I mean, it should be,
I see, this is my top thing.
and it should be after that.
Which one? They put another one, yes, that's here.
Oh.
Is this thing? This one?
This thing? Anybody have that? Or do you just have the top?
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of.
That's it, that's it.
Oh, okay,
That's
it's all,
it.
okay.
Yep, it's all attached, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But the good news is that this plan and the financial capital plan were all approved last year and went through the whole approval process, and they are unchanged for this year. There's a whole system that we go through, and the only thing that the narrative on the plan to reflect anything we accomplished this year under our goals. But otherwise,
What I'm trying to figure out is how everything got so discombobulated. I put them all together here
yeah.
so I know where they were, but they're not here. Well, the warrant hearing is open on the 2018 annual plan for the Brattleboro Housing Partnership. So what is it we have to do about this warrant hearing?
Nothing, you've opened the hearing, you take any comments, and then you close the hearing, and hopefully you adopt the plan and the required documents, and then you will sign tons of stuff for me.
So do we have any additions or changes to this annual plan? And we'll give you a few minutes to look at it. Now, this is something we have to put into HUD, isn't it? This is not more than just for our own use.
Yeah. And the financial document now comes out of a HUD electronic system, which is clunky and hard to use.
We got a highly paid person that figures out how to do that. No, there's nothing wrong with this, I can understand it.
So, do you have questions on our plan?
No, I remember this from last year.
Yeah. You
And if
might,
it's,
and I think I've shared with you that the focus of 2018 is going to be on the pre-disaster mitigation award, the moving to work, reinvigorating the Brownwood housing opportunities, improving our metrics as I sent the graphs, and a new one that we're sort of kicking around, an idea that we got from Burlington, and that is to go to look for funds, fundraising for our supportive services group. And if we get the BHOI reorganized, that can act in that way, which it was supposed to.
That's that board that you
Yeah.
discussed, yeah.
Right.
No, Support Services is SASH.
Yes, and resident services and we got our family self-sufficiency grant renewed, yay. So we just heard about that on Friday.
That helps.
Chris, it mentions a resident advisory board or boards.
Yes.
What is that?
So we're now setting a more formal system up for that. The HUD system is very sort of bureaucratic and sort of, it's like turning the Titanic, and it's tough. It's really hard to apply for smaller housing authorities. So that one calls for all these elections and presidents and yada yada. So what we're doing, and Lorelei Morissette is the organizer of this. We're going to each of the public housing developments, and we're soliciting 2 to 3 people that would like to be on a public housing wide resident advisory board that we would meet with on a quarterly basis and just talk to them about what's going on in their developments, make sure they've gotten the agendas and the minutes, talk to them about anything that's sort of up in the air. The moving to work, we'd like to have some of them be involved in that, be involved as they wish in BHOI's activities, but just so that we have a better way on a fairly regular basis to communicate with people in public, that are living in the public housing, without all the layers of this. You have to be the president, and we have to go through this whole formal election, and you have to be this, and you have to be that. It really gets to be too much. And this way, it's a little more informal, but I think in the end, we'll have better communication with all of our developments, because there won't be all that layer of, who's gonna be the president and, all of that.
So you still have that left, you still have to do that.
Well,
Or
we've
we already have
always
it?
met with a form of that
Oh, okay.
every year. But now Lorelei and I have really talked about saying, look, let's really get this to be the operational communication touch point between us and all the communities on a really regular basis. And Lorelei's really excited about it, and she's getting very positive feedback from the residents that they're like, yeah, that would be great, and I don't want to be the president, but I'd love to sit down. We buy lunch, everybody gets together, and it's really a great meeting. I mean, everybody.
Kind of a round table thing.
Yeah, and they all talk about what's working and what isn't working, and they swap ideas, and it's a really good exchange. And then we can bring things like these plans, like the capital fund. I often bring, the sorry state of our funding so that they're aware of how our funding is going or not going. We usually do a piece on fair housing and non-discrimination, and what that means in public housing, because it's different in public housing. And we talk about things like reasonable accommodations. I mean, these, why do people have so many dogs? Well, because of this is the system that we have, and we have to follow it very carefully. And so we're able to really explain to residents why we do some of the things that we do. So we've used it before for the plans and the capital fund, and now what Lorelei and I wanna do is say, no, let's use it every quarter, let's meet with them, and just have it be a regular ongoing
Mhm.
dialogue. So,
Now, how would the commissioners get that kind of information? How would that be communicated? Would you do like a summary or something of how the meeting went? So that, we just have a feel for what's going on?
oh, sure, I mean, there's two things. One, we will have minutes from these meetings that then we will post in all of the developments, so that, Tom didn't go, but he can go and read about what happened and ask the person that went from the high rise. So we'll have, I hope, a pretty good set of minutes for them, so that everybody feels like they can
Okay.
understand what happened. As commissioners, you have two opportunities. You can be in the meeting if you like, and you just need to let me know that you want to be invited, and you can be there. And we would absolutely share with you the minutes on a regular basis. And I would probably, it'll be on the agenda, probably in the Wellness and Services report, they'll probably put in a piece of having this meeting, and we would absolutely we would let you know when the meeting was occurring. You're absolutely invited to attend, and then we would make sure you got the minutes. So.
Okay. Sounds good.
It also alleviates the pileup of several months go by and, you end up with people that might be disgruntled about things or have some issues and they don't get heard for, and then you have a
Yes.
huge meeting that goes on for like
3 hours.
Nip it in the bud, I guess.
Well, Donna, actually, that whole process was one of the reasons that I really
Yeah.
said to Lorelei, what about this?
Sure.
I said, if we had had this group meeting and we were going to put in all these rules, change all this stuff and sort of put in this handbook, which is not a lot of new stuff, but just
the idea
just
that being
different.
brought up, yeah.
I said, we probably would have said, oh, well, that's the first place to take it, and that would have been great. We would have started there instead of just sort of, bang, out it comes and,
I don't think any of us will soon forget that.
So that really, it left an impression on me. I thought, we're not doing a good enough job of sort of regularly being in touch. Even if there isn't that much to say, we still should sit down and have a little lunch and visit.
Will Lorelei be the one choosing who's going to be on there?
No, the residents in the developments will choose who's gonna be there. So they'll get to,
Oh, so it's volunteers.
they'll get to decide, and Lorelei and I have been talking, and she's been talking with residents. I mean, is it gonna be a set 3 people every time, or is it gonna rotate? I mean, it could rotate. I think if it rotates, that's even better, because the whole idea is not to have any group of people with a higher level of knowledge, or insight or in,
Or
the
higher,
track,
yeah.
or any of that stuff.
Keep it fresh.
Nope, it's to keep this, getting this out to everyone. So, we'll see how many people are interested in doing it. But I hope we'll get 2 or 3 people from each place to come.
Any more comments or changes or addendums? So we will close the hearing and we will vote.
Yes, so I would ask that you adopt the 2018 annual plan and the capital plan, the annual capital plan as presented.
I make a motion that we adopt both plans.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Great, thank you very much.
So the next item is business of resident interest. And we're going to start off with the property portfolio manager and the property manager's reports. We've got the written reports here, we have them. Any modifications, additions, corrections, comments?
So this is like the Jack's report, that's where we should be.
Yes. Yes, we would be starting, Jax is on top.
Do you wanna go over these one by one, or just,
We can if you'd like.
well, we've got one here from Jack Mahoney, and he's talking about the sprinklers going on in his
Mm-hmm.
yard.
What do you think about that?
They're almost invisible,
Oh, good.
you know?
That's great.
At least they haven't made their presence known on my floor.
Oh, good. That's good.
And they seem to be making progress because the pile of pipes that they had laying outside is getting smaller.
Good, good, good. I think Jack said that after the holidays, they'll really get going.
Go take off.
Yeah.
So Hayes Court, anything, we've replaced a couple of back doors.
Yes.
Ledgewood Heights, they seem to have cleaned up their front yards.
Yeah.
And in general,
Appreciate that.
there's been motion detectors and LED lighting has been installed in the Sam Elliott trash rooms, and I've noticed them, and they are an improvement.
Good.
You walk into the room and the light goes on. Amazing.
How amazing.
When we were over there, there was trouble with the heat, is that working now?
Where?
At, RCC?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
and some, some of that is resident education, because the kind of heat that it is, it's gradual, so it comes up and then it'll get to 76, 78, and then that's where it stays. And then somebody says, oh, it's really getting too warm in here, and they crank it down, and then it goes all the way down, and then they go, oh, now it's too cold, and it goes. So it's not meant for these wide swings. So Jack is doing a lot of education. They really spent a lot of time monitoring the system, and it didn't. There were a couple apartments where the pieces of the system weren't working, and they fixed them. So.
We have one by one.
Okay. What I'd rather do to spend your time is to have you look at these charts, which I hope you all got.
Pretty colored things.
Yes, pretty colored charts.
I know I have them.
So,
There they are.
we got 'em,
I
all
know I
right.
have them.
So, if you look at this one, which says capacity utilization, vacancy days, and turnover, this is actually in chart form what, all those numbers that you get on a monthly basis, but this is a longer time. So this is from October 2016 to October 2017.
Yeah, it's a full year and it's visual instead of.
Right, and what, down at the bottom, the legend there tells you at what percent you get what number on your FAS score. And our whole life this year is about raising our FAS score.
And FAS stands for
Public Housing Assessment System.
Okay.
And so we need to get way up to this 98. And as you can see, we are not there quite yet. And then behind this one, which has each development, is the combined utilization days. And that's really the one, the blue one is the one that HUD would look at. And it's the same scoring, but that's what they're going to want to say is.
Now, utilization means what?
Utilization is from the day an apartment is emptied to the day the apartment is filled. So it's the maintenance turnover, the vacancy days when it sits idle, because, and that's actually a lease up. So if maintenance gets in and it takes a week and it's all done and the property managers don't have anybody to move in, then those next weeks are theirs. Those are vacancy lease up days. If maintenance lets it sit for 2 weeks before it goes in, that counts against maintenance. And we actually can divide out maintenance days from lease up days. But for HUD purposes, it's just, you know, come on guys, work as a team and get this
So
done.
98% would mean exactly what?
Well,
We're
90
trying to achieve.
What we're trying to achieve is about a 3-week total turnover for most of our apartments. It is possible, and for about 5 or 6 years, we were there. And we had very few apartments that went over 4 weeks. They usually got emptied in the beginning of the month, and they were full by the end of the month. So, Tom, you may remember, at that point, I was doing these very detailed charts on vacancy days down to the day, so we were counting it. And then I'd show how long it had sat before maintenance had finished, and then the days that the property managers took.
Well, and it looks like 6 out of the 12 months that you have here, you did it. I mean, it was
Yeah.
98 or higher. So.
Yeah, so we're, on the utilization days, we're within striking distance, and with better organization around, and you saw better organization around the vacancies when an apartment becomes empty, people in maintenance really understanding the urgency to get in there and get it done. And you saw that the property managers have gone through 80 long applications, and they really aren't, you know, getting a lot of responses from people, which says that our wait list is too old and we need to go through what's called the purge, where you go through this big process and get people that really don't want to be on it anymore off, and then you can, you know, you have much more current applications.
So the next one's tenant accounts receivable.
Yes,
In this case, the shorter the line, the better.
that's right. Guess where all the lines are?
Well, we got a couple, got Ledgewood and Moore are high.
Yes.
But the rest of the
Yeah.
authority is doing pretty well.
Yeah.
They always seem to be the two that.
They are. They've always been our challenge, but we know we can do better. So on this one, no,
SEA.
the highways,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
the highways, yeah. So, the high-rise Hayes and Melrose are really, you know, within striking distance. It's family housing that we really need to, work on.
Gotta get a whip or something like that. Sorry,
Against the landlord tenant law.
stocks?
So on this one, I gave you a black line to show where we really want to be. And then this again is the combined.
This is the
Number.
same chart drawn differently, sort of.
Well, yeah. And on this one, of course, we don't want to be above this black line at all,
At all.
and we totally are.
Yeah.
So,
What kind of looks like it?
Yeah, so this is gonna be a real challenge. But I think with all we're doing, I think we'll start to see some improvement.
The next thing is something we have to act on, right? Approve the write-off in the amount of $4,717.88 due
Yes.
to a declaration of bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy. So, the Brattleboro Housing Authority, many years ago, actually ended up in the federal federal circuit court, I think number 2, on a bankruptcy issue with a tenant. We lost. The judge was Bertha, and he found that a public housing lease for federal bankruptcy purposes is like a license, and therefore, under the bankruptcy, we cannot collect under it. It's immediately wiped out with the bankruptcy.
That's what
So,
bankruptcy generally do, isn't it?
well, but we were arguing that this is a debt, and that the tenant owes us the debt, and they have to, in in reorganizing under the bankruptcy, we have
Has
to be
to be paid.
recognized as a legitimate debt.
Yeah,
And this decision said no, public housing money just goes away. So, no names involved, but I will tell you that this is the same person.
fool me once, shame on you.
Well, we went all the way
Fool
to
me twice,
the.
shame on me.
Yeah, we went all the way to the, we couldn't go, the only court we would go to next would be the Vermont Supreme Court, and we weren't gonna do that.
That costs money, doesn't it?
So we do have people that declare bankruptcy, and because of this court case, the debt has to be written off.
So we have to approve the write-off. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the Board of Health.
In a
Thank you.
second?
I said,
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The write-off is approved.
Thank you. And one of the things that we're going to do is stay very current on our write-offs. Usually the property managers bring them every quarter, and Richard and I have now talked, because of those charts you just saw, we want to make sure that every month we're going through the tenant accounts and picking up the ones that really need to be written off, so they don't ride our books.
There are ways to delay these things on the part of the debtor, isn't there?
Under bankruptcy or in general?
In general, yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different things that can
Little
do.
weasel ways they can
Well,
do that.
There's a lot of,
Ultimately, they gotta pay, but ultimately it could take a while.
yeah, it can take a long time, and what we don't want is, we don't want that debt on our books. Well, we write off the debt, but we still go after collection.
Yeah.
And we still go into court and file a judgment against the tenant. So,
And then you have to collect on the judgment.
well, so we're then, but that's good, because we
Yeah.
have a legal basis on which we can be going
Yeah.
after the collection. And the Vermont courts are very strict about landlords, and that they have to file in court, and what we have to do, so.
Gotta dot every I and cross every T.
Yeah, and make sure Pat Pugh gets her.
And let's
She
move on
is
to,
well needed.
let's move on to the resident wellness and services. We got the FSS and the resident services coordinator and the staff coordinators.
yeah.
This purple one is very interesting, all that they're up to.
So would you like to discuss some of this? It says here that we have to review the written reports. We don't have to accept them.
No, there's no action
So we're in the process of reviewing them.
once, yeah.
And when you're ready, bang on the table.
But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I think it looks like they're doing some good things.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
What?
sorry, this is wrong. In November, we traveled to Yankee Candle, but people can't have candles.
Oh, I know.
There's things to buy there besides candles.
January 1.
Just,
That was good.
I'm sorry.
They can have candles, they just can't light them.
That's
Right.
right, that's right.
That's right.
They can give them away as gifts. That was good, Lori.
You've been paying attention.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I really felt for our SASH coordinators, Lorelei and Shauna really went all out. They were decorating the van to take people down to Bright Lights in Springfield. Had van full, they had food, they had all this stuff, and they're decorating, and somebody knocks on the door and says, "Do you ladies know that your tailpipes are on the ground?"
Oh.
And even though we had fairly recently had it serviced, both the tailpipes were on the ground. So people got their dinner, but it was really disappointing. They put so much into it. So needless to
It
say,
sounds pretty disappointing.
yeah. So we've now figured out a different approach to the van. So
And this is not something you can do after Christmas, it's all over.
no. It was. So they're really coming up with great things to do with folks. And
Good.
yeah, it's very good.
So we don't have to vote on this one either. We just take a review of the Housing Choice Voucher Program, Shelter Plus Care, and transitions to housing. And they are the blue ones?
You see blue? Yes.
Seems like everything is waiting to see if the budget passes. They can do anything.
Well, he's got, the Shelter Plus Care is in place, and Transitions is a state-funded program, so we'll see what happens with that.
This is a program that gets people in houses.
Rapidly picking up homeless, really, it's for homeless families and individuals to get them housed.
Oh, worthy cause.
It is, yeah, so it would be good if the state found a way to fund it. I was meeting with some people from the Vermont Housing Finance Agency, and there's a statewide group called the Continuum of Care, and David serves on it, and they were very complimentary of him. They said he was really, really good, and he really was a great asset, and, you know, it was just really nice. It's nice to, you know, get some recognition for a good staff person and the work he's been doing, so it's nice.
So we got a big bonus this Christmas.
Yeah, no, he did get a card, and I did recognize his 12 years with us.
Now, is he still, has he left?
No.
Is this the David that was
No.
leaving?
No, that was David Dearborn. That was
Oh.
our maintenance.
Oh,
fellow.
okay.
Yeah, no, this is David DeAngelis. He
Oh.
is going anywhere,
Okay.
thankfully.
This is the guy that does the Section 8s and
Yes.
everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Any comments on this? And the last one, I'm not sure I know what it is, portfolio.
Oh, that's Jack's report. You got that?
that.
Yep,
Yeah.
you got that one. All right.
That was the first one we looked at.
I know, it's a little bit out of order. We'll get it next time.
Okay, so there's nothing to act on that one.
Nope.
On these. Now we got old, new, and other business. It's a work session. We got anything to do here?
Well, there's a monthly check listing,
Which we have.
and you have that. And then
It's in there. Right there.
That's this?
the green, yeah, it's always green. Tom's signing checks in December,
Yep.
and Lori is signing checks in January.
You want to
I'll take
nominate
February.
someone for
Will you
February?
take February? All right, great. Good.
So who wants to do it?
Pat's gonna do it,
Oh, good, okay.
thank you, Pat.
Thank
Do you have any questions on the checklisting?
American Bankers Insurance? What's that?
Flood insurance.
Oh, okay. It beat Green Mountain Power.
Yeah,
I'm
it
hoping
did.
to see them. They should be the
It
biggest
did.
check
They're
here.
not.
Down the bottom one, it's ASAP painting and finishing.
Yeah, on the
And,
front page.
and Lori, that's only,
Oh,
That's,
American
uh,
Bankers Insurance.
that's 8 buildings.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not-
No, the,
That's not the 20 we usually have.
wow. Yeah, the Green Mountain came in second.
So the Blue Cross Blue Shield, that's for employees,
Yes, that's our health insurance.
and that's gonna change, right?
Yes, it is, we're gonna go to MVP. And we've had a 92-8 split, and next year it'll be 90-10.
Green Mountain Power does well by us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's Tom's favorite.
Yeah, yeah, they really love us.
So were you satisfied with the monthly check signing? Any questions about any of it?
Nope.
You didn't notice the check they made out to me, did you? Okay, so the next item, and I'm baffled on this one, restart of BHOI. I
yeah.
hate these acronyms.
Okay, but you see, we sent you
That's this one, yeah. well,
It says Brattleboro Housing Opportunities, Inc., which is our nonprofit. And so Jeanette and I put together this little paper about why we started it, sort of what happened to it, why we didn't use it the way we could have used it in both our Ann Marlborough Richards development and Red Clover Commons, and why we want to restart it now. And the reason we want to restart it is, as I mentioned, under the supportive services, we're thinking about pursuing some grants for them, and we really need a 501c3
You
for
need a
that.
nonprofit to accept a grant.
Yes, we do. And as we pursue moving to work, maybe moving properties into the RAD, we really do need to have this kind of instrumentality that is a nonprofit that is supposed to be working for the Housing Authority in place, so that it can receive properties, it can be part of transactions. I'll give you a good example. I think one of the things we're going to have to do for the pre-disaster mitigation at Melrose is we're probably going to have to subdivide out. So we'll have to make a 2-part subdivision of Melrose. And all the buildings along the brook that we're going to take out will go into one parcel. And then what will be left are the ones that we're occupying. Well, if we have BHOI up and running, we can actually sell the places that will be demolished to BHOI for $1, and then do a deed transfer, and that entity can actually take the property. And I know,
And they can do what they wish with it.
well, and then we
Which
will
means we're gonna
demolish it.
demolish it.
Yeah, we're gonna demolish it. I mean, it's still, you know, the idea is that that board would be working in effect with you all and us as the staff to affect the greater good that BHA needs for Melrose, which is demolition.
Mhm.
Um,
Ultimately, everything will be removed and corn will be planted.
Well, ultimately, everything will be removed and it will be wet.
Too wet for corn.
Right.
Maybe, maybe. So that's why we need to restart this. It would be good if we had one board member on BHOI. Don't all hide under the table now. And then we are soliciting names for other members. I've got a few, and I can send them to you on email so you can take a look at who we're sort of thinking about. But we would like one board member. I think it's really important to have a board member from this board on BHOI, especially given that the last time it just sort of got off on a different track. They sort of saw themselves as totally independent from the housing authority, and that's not the purpose. They were set up by HUD to work for housing authorities, but not under the public housing rules in development. So they're not supposed to be separate from us. They're supposed to be helping us. So I
So the
just...
right hand is knowing what the left hand is
Yes,
doing.
yes, and this can be very, very important to us, given where we're going. I mean, it's really important. So, I just wanted to formally have it in front of you. You don't have to formally act on it, but I did want you to get the history, and then we will send you some names of people that we're thinking about for it, and then, you know, happy to have you all talk among yourselves and decide who wants to be on this board.
Mhm. Sounds like a plan.
Okay, well, great. Then the next is the moving to work process. Again, we've talked a lot about that. I have a better way of explaining it, I think. And that is, if you think about all that we do, all this, you know, all the money that we get from the various HUD subsidies and rent and all of that, it comes to about $4.2 million. So instead of having that money in all these little silos like this, where capital fund, $340,000, it's all you can do with it. It doesn't touch what we need to do. You know, you have to do this with public housing, you have to do this with Section 8. What Moving to Work does is says, you can take it all and put it in one bucket. And then you can distribute it out to housing programs that you have designed with the community so that they really fit what your community needs, not what's being dictated to you from HUD. And there's a whole process that you go through, and certainly things that we have to, you know, meet and all of that. But that's what Moving to Work does. And HUD has been mandated to, over the next 10 years, bring in 100 new housing authorities. 10 each year, and a certain number of those have to be very small, like us. And I think we're in a really, really good position for this. One, because I think we have talked to the community a lot, and we can engage the community in this discussion and come up with a good plan. And the other is that we have this great organization of services. And for a small housing authority, it's unusual to have a department that's doing supportive services like we are. Burlington has that department. It's like 5 times bigger than we are, you know. But for our size, to really be, to have the services so integrated into our operation, it's unusual. So I think, and that's what Moving to Work is all about. It's all about rethinking service delivery, rethinking how long people stay in public housing, what helps them move out of public housing. And as you saw from Lucy's report, she's got people in FSS with escrows approaching or over $20,000. So it really
That's
can be
basically
done.
their money.
It's their money, it can be done.
Yeah.
One thing that Keene, New Hampshire, is a Moving to Work agency, and they set up a system so that people that need it have a $500 credit towards dental work.
Wow.
I mean, brilliant,
Nice.
brilliant. So there's just, you know, all these things. And so I'm starting with the staff. We're going to be working on administrative. The first thing they really want you to look at is how can you streamline your administrative processes, which is great because it's just nuts. So that it's easier for the resident, which is terrific, and it's less burdensome on the staff. So now, when we go to recertify somebody or when we bring in an application there are 43 different items that have to be reviewed on every single applicant. They're up to 43 that have to be reviewed and verified independently. The applicant can't come in and give us a piece of paper. We have to send it. 43 for every single person. So just doing that is a huge help for moving to work. And then what you do is you take your staff, and it's not that you cut staff, it's that you redeploy them into, you know, programs that make a whole lot of more sense and are definitely better for our residents and public housing in Brattleboro. And they've got a better job, and you know, hopefully we're doing a better job at addressing the real needs in the community that we can't address when we're, you know, in these siloed, strictly defined programs. So, all getting ready. We started to work with the staff on this. I've been talking with the Agency of Human Services District Director, Sadie Fisher, because she's trying to make sure that these big community groups, we have so many in Brattleboro, as you know, and they sort of all overlap. And she's trying to get them to be more, you know, more streamlined.
Yeah.
So I went to her and a woman at the hospital who works on the blueprint and said, look, this is what we want to do. We don't want to have another big community group. Let's think about how we could find an existing community group that is relevant and that could sort of maybe take this on. So she wrote back and said they're thinking, well, I'm going to talk to them some more about it. But that would be great. And then we could just use that group with, certainly we need to add other people because we want some specific people in there. And commissioners, we want to be able to be at the meetings, and our staff. So we've got a little work to do on there, but I think Sadie's recommendation is a good one, and it's a group that's already working around housing issues in Brattleboro. So why not? So that will begin in January. And that was all. I just wanted to really let you know that's what we're doing, and on we go. Now to the proposed schedule, which was
Well, we talked about that in the
mess.
beginning of the meeting.
I apologize. We sent you the wrong schedule. You should now have a schedule that says all meetings are at 5:30 and has a little blue note, and that is the correct schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to take it and check your calendars and let me know, I just need to know so that if by chance we're going to have a meeting where there will be 3 people that know they'll be out, if we know more in advance, we can reschedule. That's all. But if you're good with 5:30, this is basically the same list we had last year of how we rotated through places, and we're going to keep doing that.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
We can kind of
Great.
plan around it as much as possible.
Great, thank you, and I do apologize. Tom calls and he goes,
Look at
"You're
Shane.
on Tuesday." I'm like, oh no.
Okay, the next one is pre-disaster
Mitigation
mitigation
award.
award.
Yes.
You gotta tell us what that's all about.
Well, that is the $3.2 million grant that has been submitted by the state of Vermont to tear down the buildings
Okay.
at Melrose, widen the stream, put a box culvert on the George Miller Bridge. It got hung up a little bit because they had included land that we did not own. So we had to sort that out.
Check the neighbor's house, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I was like, why'd you put it in there? So we got that sorted out, and the good news is that I hope that Rod Francis from the town and myself are having a call with our Vermont, the person that's leading the charge for the state tomorrow to talk about where this is going and some FEMA questions about information they want. So I think we're still on track.
Sounds good. So this is the final item on the schedule here.
Mhm.
Review and approve recommended update to BHP personnel rules.
Yes,
Which
weren't
we
they
have talked about before.
fascinating? I mean, didn't you just love reading?
Riveting. Riveting is the word.
Riveting, I know. So, there isn't, these rules really just were desperately in need of an update. There are there are really no significant changes in these. We have put in new, more modern language, we've clarified some things. We did not add vacation days, though we did let employees float more of the, President's Day, Memorial Day, and all of those days than we have before. Really not too much has changed here. I hope we cleared it up so that it's clear about when performance appraisals are due, when anniversary dates, when you get more vacation time, what the disciplinary process is, all of that, just cleaner. And in the years since the first one, we now have the Federal Medical and Family Leave Act, we have the Vermont Parent and Maternity Leave Act, we have these that weren't in the old one, and so we really,
Incorporated that.
yeah, we really needed to at least acknowledge that they exist, and we know they do.
Chris, do we have, I'm sorry, is the role of our attorney to look this over and make sure that we're, abiding by all labor laws and all of that when we come out with something like this? Is that required or not required?
It's not required. We can do that. We don't, our attorney doesn't do that. We have a very specific personnel attorney that we use at Downs Racklin Martin for personnel issues when we have them. And I could certainly send it to her. I've been a little like,
Well, I was just curious, I didn't know if it's something we're supposed to do, or we don't have to do?
We don't have to do that. We've had a lot of readers, and this has really been taken from 2 or 3 other sources of Public Housing Authority personnel rules that were pretty well vetted with their attorneys. So I think that I feel pretty confident in what we have in here, and mostly it's because we haven't gone into a lot of detail on those things that are likely to change, like the Fair Labor Standards Act. We just mention it in here and say, we know it exists and it changes, and when it changes, then we have to change our policies.
So this is something we must approve.
Yes, I would like
I
you
hear a
to.
motion. And you can take your time.
I make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Well, if you go home and say, I really gotta read those, and read them again and find anything in here, I'm sure you're all familiar with your own personnel rules. The only thing that's different is that we're a public entity, so some things apply to us that don't apply to you, and vice versa. But just let me know, and we will make any changes that we should.
So the next item on the agenda is to adjourn. Do I hear a motion?
Take your time.
I make a motion.
There's a oh, boy.
Are we seconding it?
Yeah, she said.
Pat
Pat
seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, signify by leaving.
Yeah. You can't leave, you have to.
You have to
sign.
sign.
You
You
gotta
gotta
sign,
sign,
sign. Yeah.
Take the pen so that
Oh,
the
there you
ink
go.
matches.
There you go. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a Merry Christmas, by the way.
Hey, you
You
too.
too.